What's up, heroes? I'm the House Ninja, superhero DJ and music producer, and also the host of the Producer Life podcast. And in this special series on the podcast, I'm interviewing the contestants on Emerald Summers Presents Bass Battleground, an epic online DJ competition that runs until December, where 16 DJs battle it out for prizes, fame, and glory. The next event is going to be this Sunday, August 7th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time on the Emerald Summers Presents Twitch channel. And I've got the first of the contestants with me right now, Winter Atlas, who is a DJ, producer, and multi-instrumentalist based out of Greenville, South Carolina. He's got over a decade of experience making music and playing instruments, both in bands and as a studio session bassist and a vocalist. So we're going to have a great conversation. Welcome, Winter Atlas.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Terrific. I got to ask, I'm struggling to figure out the name. It's an awesome name, and I feel like I should be able to place it, but how did you come up with that name?
No worries. It was kind of just one of an epiphany things, really. I was originally dubbed, while starting to write music, DJ Hamplifier, because my name is Hampton and I have amplifiers. So it was a really terrible combination of the two. At 16 years old, that was funny and it was great. So after some growing and wanting to really invest in myself, I just dug through a lot of things that I like, and terms that I like words that go well together. And so I was talking with my wife one night, and I almost went with Atlas Winter because it was alphabetical, but she hit me back with a Winter Atlas flows better, and it to me it does. And both, I love snow. I like the cold weather. It's a good thing. Atlas to me is, the world, the globe, and I'm a huge fanatic of space. I got the solar system tattooed on my arm. I love everything to do with outer space and the cold and snow and music.
Okay. All right. Well, terrific. And how did you mentioned that you got started like at 16 as a DJ. Is that where this musical journey began for you?
My musical journey has been several tiers over many, many years. I probably actually started playing music and kind of writing and producing around the age of 13, actually. I just got a demo of FL Studio with a buddy of mine at his house. We hauled a really terrible drum kit down, hung a microphone from a ceiling fan, and just started recording and making dumb sounds. And then I really took off with my own copy, just making weird boops. The first track I ever made and titled was Space Jam, and it is a genuine travesty, but one that I will probably listen to for the rest of my life. But from there, I began producing electronic music just on a constant back burn. It was like what I would go home and do if I wasn't feeling playing a game or watching a movie or anything. It was going to be going home, just playing around with music and everything like that. It was about the age of 16 or so. I did get my first DJ controller, a little Hercules DJ Control Air, and just playing around with, songs I liked, seeing how they would play together. I knew nothing of the mechanics, and at the time, I had no idea how to look for it on YouTube either. So I was just out in the wild, just messing around there. And that's how I first kind of started doing that. And between those years of 13 and 18, taking guitar lessons, bass guitar lessons, playing in a little alt-rock punk band for most of high school. We won 3 consecutive Battle of the Band competitions with our performances.
Nice.
And before we all split ways.
Okay. Well, awesome. How did that band experience kind of influence your music now?
Actually, that had a pretty big influence, especially towards our actual first Battle of the Bands. We were all geared up. We had an EP out and everything. We were playing it. We had practice. We had a good choreographed, performance routine to keep the crowd interacted and everything. And then the week of the event, our drummer was unable to get off of work for it. And so panic set it in. And I was like, let's just backtrack everything. I can produce it. We can just make stuff. And so with a lot of collaborative effort, and it was not just solely me at all, but we backtracked the whole drums and everything for our entire set on a click track on an iPod Nano. And we didn't stop there. We added synths, we added bridges, we added extra effects while we were playing. I ended up making an intro track for us to walk out on stage to and stuff, and that was pretty sick. So that was really big in making a piece of electronic artwork and music that went coincidingly with a performance.
Yeah, fantastic. And were you doing that originally? You said FL Studio.
Yes, and I'm still in FL Studio now. I'm eagerly awaiting the drop of FL Studio 21. I've been dabbling in some Ableton stuff over the past couple of years. I've got a lot of producers and friends that only use that, and I would like to know how to at least comprehend it. But I've been using FL for 10 plus years now, and it is like a second home for me.
What do you like so much about FL Studios? I've got a lot of producers listening to this, so
Sure.
but a lot of them are Ableton folks, so myself
For
included.
for me, my workflow has always involved more than one screen to start off with, and I've never messed really with Ableton and multi-screen, so I'm not doing a comparison per se here. But I've always loved having my playlist view just all by itself out on another screen while I have VSTs, piano rolls, and effects and my mixer and stuff across my other two screens. That way, I have a whole screen that's just clean for the art basically of it. I love the wave shapes. I love seeing the MIDI tracks all there. It lets me see it all in a picture form almost instead of just seeing notes and music and waveforms. I like to color them depending on how the song feels. And I know you can do a lot of that in Ableton too. It is more or less an unfamiliarity is the only reason I haven't used Ableton yet.
Yeah,
But with FL Studio, the amount of time I've put into it, I can record full bands in there. I've done that several times. I've mixed and mastered several albums for either metal bands or just solo artists or a pop artist. I've done a bunch of remixes in it with friends, or even just a couple of times I've had my brother and a couple friends over. I just arm 4 or 5 tracks, however many inputs I can get into it, and we just hit live and we just jam on it and record for a while. I think to me it suits my workflow the best, with how the the visual aspect of the song appears, as I can also have my mixer at the bottom, because I've worked in live music a lot as well. So having the fader looking whole mixer rack on the bottom of the screen and everything for me is incredible for me to just glance across, and I can be like, that is down 6 decibels. I can pull this down over here. The mixing for me has been a big thing over the past few years, with my more deep dive into my production.
okay. Do you find yourself, or do you have favorite VSTs that you use with FL Studio, or do you use a
Definitely.
lot of just built-in effects?
I use a lot of the built-in effects, and I love watching tutorials and people on YouTube being like, "Yo, like check out what these native things can do," and it's crazy. I don't dive that deep into a lot of that currently. It's been more of a structural creation, and sampling and looping and just chopping and making a lot of sounds out of different sounds. For me recently, but with VSTs and stuff that I like in FL Studio, I mean, I use Serum a ton. I use that for any sound I can really desire. I mess around with Massive and Massive X from Native Instruments. I use Contact a lot for more real instruments, keys, brass or strings and stuff like that. Come from there. A lot of my more root sounds for a song, a lot of times I'll use the native FL tools for the sampler in FL Studio, where you just drag a sound and put it into there. I use that for like a lot of my percussion and everything, in that way form, as well as for sub basses. A lot of times I have a whole rack that I've built where it's just a 3 oscillator sine wave that I have a preset of effects that I go on top of that generate that kind of sub that I use most of the time, and that's all just completely native to FL Studio.
Okay, great. I want to talk a little bit about some of your music. And you've got, when I was looking through your catalog in Spotify, I was like, wow, he's got a really extensive catalog. What looked like about 30 tracks, but you said, no, there's a whole lot more. What would you, how many tracks do you have in your catalog right now?
I could get a precise thing if I looked it up, but to start with, my goal for myself in the year of 2020, which was just a sheer chaos year for so many people and artists alike, um, my goal was to release a new song every single week for the entire year. So in
Wow.
2020 alone, I released 52 tracks. And that ranged all the way from some of my more signature, my personal feeling, like future bass, like melodic dubstep vibes, to like really heavy dubstep or like some house music, all the way down to just chill ambient tracks or just some lo-fi hip hop beats or just a hip hop beat. Some kind of more like electro pop, I guess, sounding tracks in there as well. But 2020, I used that method of wanting to release a new song every week as a venue for me to really, really dive in and see how quickly I could get a project from my head onto FL Studio and then out to the public. And also, one of my biggest things for me in my life as a person is integrity, and I want my music to show that as well. I want my music to be quality, and so the rapid production can always result in a really terrible sounding song, mixed or mastered. It can just be terrible. So the goal there as well was not only just to make a quick song, get it out there, not care about it. No, I wanted to make a quick song and I wanted it to sound good. And then somebody would be like, dude, this song sounds great. How long did you spend on it? I mean, like, dude, I made that in a day, like if not like 6 hours tops type of thing. Um, and not I'm not looking for that for bragging rights or anything. I want that to be a skill. I want to be able to do that. I want to write with people, and I want to be able to write that way for myself, because as a young adult, at 28, I'm still working a full-time job. I'm DJing on the side. I'm producing music on the side, and then I've got my hobbies. I like to game with my brother or my friends. I like to hang out and go out for dinner and stuff like that. So it's, to me, being able to sit down and put down the quality and the heart that I want in a song quickly and effectively as well.
So
So yeah.
what lessons did you learn over that year of producing 52 tracks? How did you get so fast at producing, mixing and mastering those tracks? What was your workflow
that
like?
that came down to a little bit of weighing how I would roadmap my songs, I guess. So, say I sit down for a session that day, and I start off this super sweet song, and I'm like, this is sick. I cannot make this the quality I want it to be within a week. So that song then hits level 2 for me and drops down in priority a little bit. Whereas I can spend some time on that and make that a future release. So it wasn't necessarily starting a song on Monday to release it on Friday, because a lot of distribution places, they want you to have your songs submitted 4 to 6 weeks in advance before release. So often, no, I wasn't perfect about this either. I tried to have 4 or 5 songs lined up in release. So I would give myself 4 to 5 weeks to complete a song. But, there's some of those days where I could sit down and write one of my chill, like I could have been really tired. I can just drop a cool beat in. I can start chopping some samples and make a lo-fi track, just a little beat to vibe with and chill with. And I'd be like, this is good. My mixing, I mix from the ground up a lot of the times. I'm a big fan of finding the priority sounds, putting that to 0, then leveling everything around that and blending and panning accordingly.
You don't
Mastering and everything, to me, is still a little bit of a monster, but I'm getting much, much better at that. I know what I'm looking for most of the time now.
I've frequently heard the advice to leave a few decibels of headroom rather than mastering right to 0, but you prefer to master right to 0 or
Not
mix right to
mastered, no,
0?
just for the channels. So channels 1 through 20, they all I can have them all up to 1, to 0 decibels. But then the send that I have everything going to, I always have that at -6. So I give
Oh,
myself -6 decibels of headroom on my master track itself before I even export for the first time. Now, that doesn't say that I have, I think, honest to God, the only thing that ever constantly hits 0 decibels is probably my kick drum. That's in its own track. And even when I route that out to the master where that's sitting at, it never goes above -6. And so I've gotten some kickback on this, and then other people do this as well. I like to master in a completely separate session. I never master at the same time. I sit down and I level out my track. I get everything routed to my master, and then I export it as a 32-bit float wave file. So I've got all the headroom I could possibly desire. And then again at that -6 decibels on the output for that song itself. So, I export that and I start up a new session. I drag that file in, and it's just, sometimes it's just a little bitty thing, and I normalize it and give it, its breath to where it sits. And even then, at that point, when the master fader for me is at my minus, I recently have been exporting at -0.2, so a little more than half a decibel of true peak volume. I master into isotope products is what I use from my mastering chains. I use EQ, I use Neutron, and then I go all the way into Ozone 9 with a couple things thrown in between here and there, depending on the song, to bring the volume of the track and maximize that up. And then I limit it with my true peak in Ozone to give it that no clip. This is your no leaving this zone brick. And then for me, it's listening for distortion at that point. And if I can hear distortion, or if I hear sounds getting squished, it's dialing back, either jumping back to my mix track, re-leveling some stuff, and then bouncing back into the master, which I know can be a pinch tedious. But again, that's been my routine for years. The first reason I ever did it was my computer was too crappy to handle a mastering session on top of a project. And then B, it's less distracting for me. I can't go and adjust every little bitty sound every single time I hear something in the master. I'm like, okay, hold on. So is this something I need to go back to my mix session for, or is this something I can actually, readjust my master EQ, my compression, and everything like that? Is that something I can address in post per se? Not always, but there's times that I've surprised myself.
okay. You've got a new track coming out later this month, "Wind of Delirium." Can you tell us a little bit about that track, since
Sure.
that's recent on your mind?
Yeah, I mean, recent on the mind. That's actually fairly old on the heart. That one's been sitting in my private tracks on SoundCloud for, I think, 2 years now. I wrote that in 2020, but I was never fully satisfied with how it was because of the way that song flows and the hit and everything. This is a heartfelt track for me on this front. I used some splice vocals for the first time on it, and I'd never found some samples that made a song feel that much better before. And so I was trying to get like small labels to pick it up and release it, because I was like, this song I feel so good about. I want this to actually be heard. And recently, I thought back to 2020. It's like I was releasing a song a week. I can release a song a month here or there. This song is so good. I want people to hear it. I want to start showing off what I really want to be. Again, with that, trying to narrow down my branding and myself as Winter Atlas, and start really trying to push out some really high quality, really polished tracks that I want to release, instead of just my jam tracks, my lo-fi beats and stuff like that. I wanted the passion tracks to hit harder. And so this one, I'm amped for this release. I put it out, like I said, it's 4 weeks in advance or something like that. It's coming out on the 26th. So I'm going to be posting a bunch about that off and on, and I'm just hoping for a good reception on it.
Okay, awesome. Well, I'll include the pre-save link in the Battleground notes. Before we talk about this weekend's Battleground, I do have to ask you about one more thing because my head kind of exploded when I saw it. I was doing what I usually do before the show. I was stalking you on social media, and I was checking out all your posts and everything, and checking
Every
out your
good interviewer
Spotify
should.
profile. Yeah, you call it research, I call it stalking. Same. But I went over to your personal profile on Spotify, and my jaw dropped because you have 515 public playlists on your personal profile, and some of those playlists have upwards of 30,000 streams, I guess, a month. So tell me about that because that is a huge number of playlists that I don't know. Are you curating those or what's going
No.
on with those?
Are you talking about the like my Hampton Aramic
Yeah,
profile or the
your
Winter Atlas?
personal profile. You've got
Mhm.
a ton of playlists under there.
So a lot of those was during 2020. Again, with a song a week, that doesn't leave a lot of time for promotion. So I was actually digging into a lot of submission, publish promo like playlists and stuff like that where you could submit your tracks and stuff too. And a ton of those places require you to follow those playlists for them to even like listen to your submission. So
Got it.
a
Those are ones you're
good amount of
following,
those
not
playlists are just locked in from there. And I think actually at the beginning of this year, that was probably closer to like 1,000 playlists, and I've been narrowing it down over the years.
okay.
I won't lie. I have a good chunk of those that are personal playlists that I've made, or off and on. I'm a wedding DJ on occasion as well. I DJ for friends and family that are looking for a DJ, and that's not my business per se. That I don't put that on my card. So like if a friend or family needs a DJ for not $1,800, I am more than happy to try and accomplish that. And so I have a bunch of playlists, like honestly, probably 50 to 100 playlists in there that are from different weddings or different events, formals, homecomings and stuff like that, where people give me like requests and I drop it in a playlist so that I can have it for later as well. So for me, my playlist vault is basically just that. It's a crate dig. I jump into there if I feel risky.
Got it. Got it. And I think it speaks a lot to you as a DJ and how versatile you are, not just the variety of music that you're following and listening to, but also I think it was you at Roguewoods, the Emerald Summers Presents Festival that we were at just recently. Your thumb drive got corrupted and you had to play off of somebody else's thumb drive, didn't you? Was that you?
That wasn't me, but I did actually have to play off of my laptop briefly, or try to, and
Okay.
then I just wound up playing off of the internal Denon that DJ Stilts had up there for us. He had his own stuff in there, and really one of the things that, because I actually haven't been like EDM DJing for more than 3 years at this point. I moved to Greenville, South Carolina, late 19, and started getting involved with the scene here. And then I was playing at a local place every Thursday and got taught a ton of stuff. And a lot of it was very much on the fly. A buddy of mine's like, hop up here, just play with me. And I was like, I don't have a drive. He's like, just play what's on there. I was like, okay, I don't know what's on there, but let's find out. So it was learning the cues, seeing the keys, the BPM and stuff like that. And knowledge of the genre as well. And being able to just very much mix on the fly. And so that's one of the reasons I was actually like, I was stumped at Roguewood at first, but then I just had to go back to that mindset where it was just, I need to hop on this and I just need to start playing some freaking music. Like that's what
Yeah.
these people are here for. And then after a little bit, got my drive back in and started working, and then just took off from there as well.
Yeah, if
Um,
I hadn't been standing behind there as you guys behind the decks as you guys were kind of trying to figure it out, I wouldn't have noticed from an audience perspective. So a big kudos there. Um, let's shift focus a little bit. Let's talk about the event this weekend. Let's talk about Base Battleground. You're going to be going up against Rei Low. Um, Tell me about what you've done to get ready for that and what people can expect from your set.
Sure. The First and only other time I have actually DJ'd a live stream event was for the DJs for Ukraine benefit back in January. That a bunch of people that are also involved with Emerald Summers, as well as across the globe and states all over the place. People were very involved with that, and it was a very awesome experience. I'd never done anything like it before. So I spent 2 days beforehand just rerouting my desk and like, okay, my interface is better over there. I have a dresser over in my corner that's, about stomach height. And so I hauled that over in front of my computer where my webcam is. And I just adjusted, pulled my board over, ran some extension cables, and I actually hung this little curtain back here on my wall, and I had it draped down. And my buddy has a tiny little projector, which I'll probably end up using again for this week's Battleground for some just projection visuals and stuff. I was trying to emulate a lot of what I saw during 2020, where so many DJs were on lockdown, there were no shows. Ghastly, for one, he dressed up in a green screen morph suit, wrapped his whole room in a green screen, and just DJ'd for like hours and just had a great time with weird visuals and good music. And so I'm like, that sounds awesome. I don't have that, but I'm going to try. And so for this week, I guess I'm going to try and probably make sure it's a little streamlined for myself. I have a good set list idea that I have in prepping. I'm also trying to work in as many originals as I can. Like I said, with 2020 and doing 52 songs in that year alone, not just that year, but in total, I have roughly 34, 35 straight up EDM songs in my actual catalog of releases. And I saw that the other day. I was just curious to see how many I had. And I was like, oh, I've got a lot. I could really actually put a lot of these into a set. So I'm working on that. This may not be the week for it, but I always have some of my own originals to drop in there. And that new one coming out in a couple weeks, Wind of Delirium, I'll probably try and work that in there this week. So if anybody's listening, you get a early listen.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Do you have any messages for your competitor?
Rei Low, I don't. I saw you have a beard. It doesn't look as long as mine, so I can only say may the best beard win. But at the same time, I'm so excited to just play and have a great time, and I can't wait to watch Rei Low's set as well. Happy hardcore is a genre I don't listen to very often anymore, but I definitely used to. So I'm very, very curious to watch a set of it DJed live, and I'm very excited just to be a part of it.
Yeah, it should be fun. And tell the listeners where they can find you online.
Absolutely. So this week, on August the 7th, I'll be on Twitch through Emerald Summers Presents. And then I have a pretty good presence on Instagram at winter_atlas. If you look up on Spotify, Apple Music, SoundCloud, anywhere you stream music, Tidal, any of it, you just look up Winter Space Atlas. It's 2 words, Winter Atlas. You can find me on all of it. I just want my music to be out, available for people to hear. And I just love it when somebody comes to me and is like, you had a song that I came across the other day and it was awesome. And that makes my absolute day.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time tonight. And I'll be looking forward and cheering for you both in the live stream this weekend.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. Right now, I've got Rei Low. He's an Atlanta-based producer, DJ, and multi-instrumentalist who produces industrial pop, deep house, and techno. And I'm excited to welcome you, Rei Low, to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to get into the thick of it, I guess.
This is going to be good. I got to ask, I mangled your DJ name at the beginning. I mispronounced it. So tell me a little bit about the background on the name and how you got started originally DJing.
Okay, so that is a really interesting story. So I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of repurposing or I repurpose. Okay, so the long story is that in high school I was doing a bunch of psychedelics and stuff for a long period of time, and basically ended up I guess permit tripping would be like a solid term for it. Basically, had to go to a doctor to kind of figure out what was going on with like substances and everything that I was dealing with. And at the time, that was like a phrase or like word or like kind of just like signifier that I had heard like through these like hallucinations and trips. And so, whenever it came time to like start making music and just posting it online, just for, like kind of for fun, um, it was right after I'd gotten out of that period of like psychosis and kind of like drug abuse. And so I figured, it's an interesting story. It can be like kind of like a repurposing of like a word that like almost empowering sense of like, oh, this is like part of my story, part of where I came from. And it also sounds cool. I don't know. That's that helps as well. But I don't know. Yeah, I was just sitting in rehab and like just it like kind of popped into my head and I stuck with it, ran with it. I was well, not the word itself, like the phrase I had heard before, but it was more just like, oh, that would be an interesting. I was looking for an artist name because I was just sitting playing guitar, not able to use my computer, and I was like, well, I want to start putting down some of these recordings of me playing guitar. And what should I do it under? And that's kind of where the whole music thing started, was like a response, like almost a therapeutic response to dealing with like a very scary and like traumatizing event. So yeah, right into the thick of it.
Okay, and well, I'm glad you made it through that, and that's an awesome backstory to the name. Uh, you posted something on Twitter a little while ago that you've been sober for 3 years now. Congratulations! And uh, can since you kind of brought it up, can you tell me a little bit about that and
Yeah.
sort
So,
of the challenges there?
oh my God, are there challenges? Yeah, right. Like, I mean, it's interesting because this is just kind of anecdotally, but I was helping organize this show for a collaboration between these two event companies, um, WGF and YDF, and they're like both underground rap kind of scenes. And the guy Richie walks up to me, the guy who runs it, and he's like, yo, like, you drinking tonight? And I was like, no. And he's like, are you doing something else? I was like, no. And he just looked awfully confused. And I guess that's kind of like inhabiting music scenes as a sober person can be kind of confusing for certain people, I guess, especially ones who use it as a kind of like, they use drugs as like a way to enhance the experience, which I totally get. Like, I've been there. Um, but for me, it doesn't enhance it, right? Like, a lot of the times, like, um, when I was in my like high school band or whatever, like just like a cover band in high school, I would show up just like absolutely stoned to the bone or like tripping on something, and um, I thought it sounded really good. A lot of other people did not think it sounded good, right? So I learned that lesson early on, that it's best if you're going to perform to actually treat it like it's a job, like it's work. You know what I mean? You don't. Yeah, most people don't think it's a good idea to show up tripping or high or drunk or whatever to work. It's generally frowned upon, and for a good reason. And so whenever, I don't know, 3 years sober. So that was in July 14th, and the journey of getting into the scene has been interesting because it's during COVID, right? Like, I just started producing like a little bit of like kind of drum and bass and stuff and just having a little bit of fun. I was in a band and like learning how to record with them, and just watching lessons, and I was programming the drums for the punk band. And then I started like, having to engineer my own voice and engineer the guitars and figure all that stuff out. And then COVID hit. And so the traditional way of like, oh, going to a bunch of clubs and learning that you love music, and I do love music, and I learned that at a young age. And also like my entry into the scene was more along the lines of like the internet. I mean, that band met on Craigslist. You know what I mean? It was a very weird situation overall, but yeah, I got on Twitter, got invited to some Discord chats, and kind of learned the ins and outs of productions from some people who I think I really admire and I think have really like helped me find my sound. Shout outs like DJ Girl and Twofold and all of the Eat This collective. And definitely shout out to like Music Mondays and Bestie Mafia, like just everyone who like along the way has helped me out with my production, because and just like making music in general, because I think without that like sense of community, even though it's online and it's a little parasocial, you know what I mean? It definitely it definitely helped. So like I guess for me, sobriety hasn't been a huge problem for staying um it hasn't been a problem staying sober. It's really more going to events and staying sober is like a little weird for other people. For me, it's not weird because I love music and I love doing it, and this is what I want to do for my job. But for other people, it can make them really uncomfortable. Or maybe not really uncomfortable, but it just makes them like second guess it. Like I remember I was at Roguewood and one of the I don't remember who I was talking to, but they were like, "Oh, so you're just out here raw dogging life?" And I was like, "Kind of. I mean, I figured like you're out here raw dogging drugs. Like that's really my take on it."
Well,
But
you can just make people comfortable. Just walk around with a glass of Diet Coke or something and pretend like it's rum and Coke, you know, and everybody like, they'll just assume,
exactly, yeah, and it's more for other people sometimes than it is for us. But
what are you
yeah,
drinking?
no, 100%. That you can like bring a buddy, bring a buddy, drink like something that looks brown, hit a jewel or a little vape or whatever, and just like, yeah, I fit in fine. I'm not worried about it. It's more just like if I do try to take some substances into my body, it's just going to be a nightmare for everyone involved. So I tend to avoid that nowadays, and
Yeah, well,
I think it definitely
congratulations.
helps.
And I
Yeah,
imagine
recovery's been great.
so. One of the things that struck me as I was looking at your catalog on Spotify as a producer is you have been phenomenally productive over the last couple of years, and that seems like that coincides with this period of sobriety. I mean, you've in 2022 alone, I was absolutely shocked. You put out 5 singles, 2 EPs, and an entire album in 2022, and we're only 3/4 of the way through the year.
And a
That's
lot of
that.
that has been banked. I think so. Yeah, 2022 has been really interesting. Here, let me pull up Spotify, because in 2021, I think I only put out like a couple EPs, and I was really working on a couple projects. The first one being Alien Complex, which is coming out in 15 days. I need to start working on promo for that. But um, 2021 was interesting because I kind of had to take a step back and think about how am I going to incorporate vocals into these instrumentals and stuff that I'm trying to write. And so it came from like a lot of influence of like punk music, like post-hardcore specifically, um and like drum and bass, and like where those two things kind of interact, which is like super weird and like experimental too at the same time. And like hyper pop is definitely a big influence. But um a lot of that so far has been banked from 2021. So Alien Complex is a concept album about it's kind of like my take on like the space rock genre, but just from like an electronic perspective. There's a lot of history of aliens and electronic music. If you look at the history of like the development of electronic music, whether it's like Karl Heinz Stockhausen's like his project Contact, which is like a B side or maybe it's an A side to like a release where it's basically just a bunch of weird sounds he made in the 50s with this synthesizer that was outlining like an alien contact. So, and then recently, like there's a couple of producers I really like Igloo Ghost and Kai Whitston, and both of them have been working with like kind of the idea of like not necessarily like aliens in the sense of extraterrestrials, but being alienated as a person, and using that as like a mechanism, like using the experience of being an alien in a society as a, but also saying it in a literal sense of telling the story of an extraterrestrial. So that was kind of the story behind Alien Complex, is like my experience, I guess, growing up in the deep South and being like, not really fitting in, not really having a lot going on. And I guess, yeah, the narrative is like, you go to space, you like fall in love with something, and then it ends up like biting you in the ass. And you like they go to like the princess and like me or whatever go in the intergalactic war, and then like after we fall in love, and then I like kind of, I don't know, the narrative is kind of all over the place, but the idea is like the alien is kind of like all the isms that we use to like classify ourselves, and all these labels and all these different things that divide us, right? And like initially, like we, kind of find comfort in finding a name for whatever it is that we like, or I found comfort in like knowing that, oh, I have like an addiction problem, and like this is nice to know finally what was like kind of made me the odd one out when I was like drinking and using in my teens and stuff. And but really it's not that, right? Like it's the fact that um although that label does make me comfortable, it's like it's more complex than that. And like, I'm a product of my own history and just everything along. I don't know. It's kind of a weird like journal entry into like a time of like change, I guess, would be like a good summary of the Alien Complex album. And that's coming out on the 18th. And that is like kind of my big project for the year. And I've been working on it over the last year and a half. So
Yeah, that's awesome. And it sounds like a lot of your albums, because a lot of your albums feature you as a vocalist, correct?
yeah, it's either that or I'm like producing an album for exclusively one artist,
Okay. All right. I mean, it seems
like
like a lot of
executive
your,
producing almost.
like Atlians, is it not Atlians, like the Aliens album that is coming out, are a lot of your songs sort of metaphorical and have messages on multiple
Yeah, a lot
layers?
of it's conceptual.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of it's conceptual, I think. Like for instance, just like this Control ATL Delete release that me and Nate just put out. It is like a small short story about like getting messed up, falling in love, feeling like you want to. It's basically a story of like unrequited love and like lust and all that stuff, and kind of not getting what you want out of a relationship. Like a lot of the stuff that I do right or like help on has like its sort of narrative or concept to it. Unless it's like a Lucy's album, I'll do Lucy's albums every now and then. But a lot of the times there is like something going on in my life that I'm working through. There's something that I'm like thinking about, and or there's something that I'm listening to. Cloud, stop. Come on. Hey, girl. Sorry, my dog's being stupid.
That's all right. We like dogs.
Yeah, there's something I'm working through, and something I'm like thinking about, and it makes my music sound different, And that's kind of the cool thing about like being able to have like it's like a journal entry of a period of time in my life, I guess.
Yeah, that's cool. You really poured yourself into your music, and not only are you singing on some of the albums, but you actually, like on the villain ones, you were rapping. Is that you as
Yeah,
well?
and that is kind of like a weird thing for me because I don't like rap or whatever. But what it is like at the time I was going through like some serious negative feelings of like um basically like, so my ex and me had decided to get back together, and she was seeing someone on the side. She was dating someone, and I was the side guy, and I didn't know that. And then also that happened again with this other girl that I was seeing. She ended up having a boyfriend, and then the third time it happened again, and I was like, okay, now what is this? What quality of that about me makes it like endearing or enticing to like be the other person in like a kind of a infidelity and in relationships, and like, so I guess that was me like kind of exploring the concept of like just being an asshole. But like it wasn't something I had intentionally done. Like none of these girls had told me that they had like were in relationships or seeing someone or something like that, but it didn't change the fact that I like felt weird about it. And like my way of, I guess, like processing it or just like kind of like working through that period of my life was like, all right, well, that's kind of like a shitty villainous thing to do. So like, what does that sound like to me? Yeah,
Yeah. Well,
it was a weird
kudos
little period of life.
for really pouring yourself into your music. And I think a lot of producers are hesitant to put their own voice on an album, or even a single track. I know of all of the tracks I've produced, I think there's one track that has my actual voice on it, and it's like one word. So, um, yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome
And a lot of
that
this
that
also
you're.
like, yeah, a lot of it comes from, so when I was in high school, my music teacher actually, which I had the blessing of having like a music program in my school that was really good. My music teacher was like he taught theory, he played organ at the church, and then also he was the like assistant director of the American Boy Choir, like who he like played at like inaugurations and shit. So basically like he really like taught me the fundamentals of singing and stuff like that. And I've kind of lost it, but I'm getting back into it through like my music degree at GSU. But um I've always I've always imagined people, and this is JPEG Mafia. Shout out JPEG Mafia because like what he said like made so much sense to me at the time. He was like, I was making weird beats for other people, and they didn't want to get on it, and like, but I saw so much potential in what I was doing, so I just had to start doing it, and like that's really what it is. Is like a lot of the times like with my friends and like other collaborators that I work with, I'll have to show them that it is possible to like get on these like weirder tracks and that like it sounds really cool. I mean, because Laura Pignate, like this vocalist from New York that I've been working with over the last couple of years, she's like really one of the few people who's been able to like channel that kind of that flexibility of being able to get on pretty much anything and making it sound better than it was before. And that's like the goal of most vocalists, is to kind of like improve and like make the track even more interesting than it was, and like maybe ascribe some sort of like meaning to like whatever these sounds make you feel, you know?
Yeah. Tell me, sort of at a technical level, what are you using? What do you use for a DAW to start with?
Oh, okay. So I use Ableton. My primary synth is like it was Serum, and then I started switching to Vital. So I pretty much only use like Vital and like wavetable stuff, and I really love the ability to patch different and like automate different parameters based on kind of like whether it's like velocity, pitch, or here I've got Ableton open right now, so I can kind of refer to it. Um, and like the random generator is like something I'm starting to get into as well. Like they have they have different algorithms like sample and hold, sign, interpolate, and Perlin for like
You're
this
talking about
random
Vital?
just value generator. And so a lot of the times, like to get really Vital does.
No, no. Are you talking about within Ableton? Or are you talking
Vital
about
has like a
the,
random section, so you can like basically. What's up?
no, I was just clarifying. Is that Ableton or is that Vital where you're talking about the random patches?
Oh, Vital. Vital has the ability to patch like a random value onto something. And so, for instance, like I have this weird. Um, Let me find it. I just recently released a sample pack through Symphonic Production as well, so we're working on a second one. And let me see where the random is doing. So the random is like triggering the LFO, which is modulating the distortion, the filter cutoff, and the wavetable like actual position. So that's like one of the random ones. The other one is doing a transposition to make it like a. Are you familiar with any producers like SV1 or like DJH?
I'm not familiar
They
with them
basically
now.
what they'll do is they'll do like they'll take like a spectral waveform, so like something that has like kind of a janky waveform, and they'll pitch it like 8 octaves below or whatever. Like you play C0 or like C-2 on the keyboard, and then also you like have the oscillator pitch down to like -48 semitones, and you can get like these incredible textures when you're modulating the actual position of the wavetable to the point where like it sounds like a garbling like water almost. Like if you take a saw wave and it'll just be a click eventually if you pitch it down enough, right? It'll just be at each one of those peaks, and so of the waveform. So ideally, if you can take something that's spectral and kind of like modulate it, that click turns into like a water sound, or it can turn into like just like weird like rumblings almost. So
Sure.
um that's like a texture that I've been really playing with a lot, and like a lot of the times using randomness to modulate that is really fun. Also, like as far as sound design is concerned, I think like Sophie is another big influence of mine. So like that just includes like using FM synthesis at like an extreme level. So that would be like the way that Sophie makes her, or used to make her samples and like snares specifically. She would take like basic shapes and FM them against each other, but like then like push, like if you were to take like a just like a LFO that's like a reverse envelope, right? So it just goes up, and then you assign that to, I guess, the modulating sine wave. So you turn that all the way down, have the pitch go up on the sine wave that is turned down, and then and then the second sine wave that's being modulated, if you can follow this, will sound like almost metallic. It'll sound like I think pulling up a synth for reference would be really useful right now, but I don't think I can share my screen. But it's like a loud metal clang, and it's been a really useful skill. I've learned it. I learned it on YouTube, and then kind of started playing with the idea of it. And then the third thing that I do a lot is like pitch envelopes to like make like a laser, which is like pretty standard, but I put it on the bass. Like, so if you're making like a regular like 808, right, you have like a small pitch, like from high to low modulation on the sine wave, which will give it like that initial like thud, and then the low tone of like the sine wave. And that's like a quick way to just make like an 808, right? Well, what happens if you like crank that pitch envelope all the way up and then add a chorus and add distortion? It makes this like massive laser wide, like impactful bass that I've kind of been playing with too. So I don't know. There's a lot of this is like, what was that guy? Like Umaru is like a big influence. His any videos you can find of Umaru about sound design are usually like gold. He just released a sample pack on Splice. It was like, and he runs a sample label on there, and they like are consistently topping. Maybe not topping, but they're like top 3 usually every time they drop a pack. I'm curious. I definitely would recommend Umaru and his label.
Umaru. Okay. I did want to go back just one more producer specific thing. You said earlier that you had Serum and you use Serum, but you prefer Vital. And of course, Serum is like $220 and Vital's is $5. Free. They've got a couple of paid tiers as well. So I had always assumed that producers that picked Vital, because it looks and feels a lot like Serum, chose it because they didn't want to spend the money on Serum, but you're going the other way. So what draws you from?
Yeah, I think Vital is a little bit better for a couple of reasons.
Yeah. What is it you like Vital better?
The first reason I would say why Vital is a little bit better. Yeah, so it's a little bit better because you have unlimited LFOs and you have unlimited envelopes, and you have I'm pretty sure, never pushed it, but I'm pretty sure you have unlimited random generation as well. Plus, I would say you're missing out if you use Vital on having the hyper plugin or whatever. Like it's basically, it sounds like a mix between a chorus and unison. Do you know what I mean? That first plugin on the effects rack. And also,
I'd have to look.
It's pretty easy to recreate. Yeah. But yeah, if you're looking at Serum, I guess the main difference is that you have unlimited LFOs, unlimited envelopes, and unlimited random generators. And I believe on Serum you max out at 8, which is like not that big of a deal. Also, I think I like the Vital. The workflows are almost the same, which is why I was able to translate very easily. But I think the Vital actual wavetables are less geared towards like dubstep or like whatever you want to call it, like aggressive sound design, and more to like expressive and kind of. I think Vital has a little cloud. You're gonna lose this ball. I'm sorry. I'm not gonna keep getting it for you. I think Vital has a little bit more variety of wavetables, and the tools that they do have are like in greater number. So that's why I use Vital mostly.
Okay, cool. Well, I did a review of Vital a while back on the podcast, and so that's what sort of struck my attention. I'll have to link that in the show notes. Tell tell me about, let's shift a little bit. Let's talk about Base Battleground. You're competing against Winter Atlas this weekend. What are your plans for the live stream, and what can people expect out of your set?
Okay, so first off, I my mixer is broken now, the one that I have in my house, so my headphones don't work. So I had to do a little bit of planning and a little bit of improvisation to get it to basically no headphone mix, which is fun. It's a different challenge. I think there's some really great moments in it. I've already practiced it a little bit, and I think I'm gonna record one of my practice sessions and then stream it, because I can't live stream on my current setup. But the idea behind a lot of my DJing is like taking something like a footwork track or something where I can like get the kicks on like a really weird rhythm, but like a still groovy rhythm, and then have like some really like interesting sound design on the other track and some other like really interesting rhythms or melodies or something, and kind of like blending those two elements together, like just mashups, right? But I would expect really interesting mashups of songs probably no one's heard before, just like
so we won't even know their mashups. We won't even know their mashups. We just like, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, it'll just sound good. You won't know their mashups. Yeah, there's no like there's not a lot of vocals or anything on it either. That's just kind of how I do it. A lot of mashups. So yeah.
Okay. Have you got any messages for your competitor Winter Atlas?
Oh, I mean, look, I am coming into this like feeling pretty confident. Also, I've listened to Winter Atlas's sets at Roguewood, and they were really good. So I'm nervous, and also I feel confident in my set. So I think it's going to be pretty interesting. I think if you're watching it, you're going to have a great time. I think that's really the goal at the end of the day for everyone, is just to put on a good show. And I think it's going to be great based on what I've heard from Winter Atlas and based on what I have practiced. I think it's going to be great. So I'm excited.
I'm looking forward to it, and excited to open up for you guys. And 4 p.m. Eastern time on the Emerald Summers Presents Twitch channel this Sunday, August 7th. So we're looking forward to having you on there. And where can people find you online?
Okay, so I'm on Twitter at _Rocktimist. That's where I'm going to be the most active. I review music at All Music Mondays, and I also interview artists and stuff like that, just general music journalism on allmusicmondays.com, and I'm on Instagram at _Rei_Low_Clutch. Plugging.
Okay. Fantastic.
Silence dog.
Good luck this weekend, and thanks for your time tonight.
All right. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.